Hello, it's me, your local non-binary witch. I'd like to talk about same-sex initiation. So, aside from the fact that the whole concept of same-sex initiation in Wicca shouldn't even be controversial, it should just be a thing that's available because it's reasonable and sensible, I thought I'd share with you some of the occult arguments for it. So, for one thing, same-sex initiation has been practiced in many different secret societies and societies with secrets, occult societies throughout the centuries. Also, there were many ancient pagan cults that practiced same-sex initiation. So why on earth should Wicca be special in that regard, that it doesn't? From an occult perspective, the practice of initiation is activating the initiate on multiple different levels at the same time. So for one thing, it is opening that initiate to an experience of the gods, and it is inducting them into the group mind or the egregore of the tradition. And it's hopefully doing some kind of inner transformation of the initiate, and it is a shared experience between all initiates. Now, I was taught that when you do an initiation, the energetic connection between the initiator and the initiate acts on multiple levels. So it acts on a sublimated erotic level. That does not mean that the initiator is looking at the candidate in a pervy way, or, looking at their titties and ass or whatever. It means that there is a sublimated erotic tension in the situation. Okay, so it does not mean that, I will repeat that again, it does not mean that the initiator is perving out looking at the candidate in a sexual way. It means there's an erotic underlying tension to the situation. Also works on the connection of friendship and companionship and the feeling of connection, magical and spiritual. Okay, but part of that is the erotic subtext. So if you're heterosexual or bisexual, then you can easily create erotic subtext with a person of another gender. If you're 100% gay, you're more likely to be able to create that erotic undertone, undercurrent, subtext with a person of the same sex. And that, in essence, is my argument for same-sex initiation. I also think that there's nothing wrong if somebody has a very strong connection to another person, which may or may not include sublimated eros, who knows, and they want to be initiated by that person regardless of gender, then I'm fine with that as well. But I think that the arguments that are often put forward for cross-gender initiation talk about, fertility and polarity and stuff like that. And I've already demonstrated in other videos that I've made and books that I've written that fertility and polarity can be made by people of any gender, and they're nothing to do with gender. So, fertility is magical creativity, and there are numerous instances from mythology of two people of the same sex making fertility symbolically. So, for example, the legend of the Grail Knight who goes to the Grail Castle and he's a knight, and he has to ask the right questions in order to restore the virility of the Fisher King, who then restores the fertility of the land. So that is a man and another man creating fertility together. And I finally thought of an example where two women create fertility together, although it's a bit tenuous, but I like it anyway. In the Legend of Demeter, Demeter is grieving for Persephone having been carted off to the underworld by Hades, and she causes the whole land to become barren and infertile and creates the first winter. And so she's sort of sitting around not doing her job as a fertility goddess, and then the goddess Balbo comes, who is presented as a very erotic person who has a lot of humour, very earthy sexual sort of humour, and basically jollies Demeter along and says, "Come on, let's have a party, it's great," dances around, tells her dirty jokes, and they generally have a good time. And it's that sort of, it's not that it necessarily stops it being winter, but it does make Demeter get off her ass and stop whinging and go and petition the gods to sort the situation out. So you could argue that that's kind of two women creating fertility, although I admit it's a bit tenuous. So fertility is fertility of mind, creativity, that kind of thing. And also, if you're going to argue that only two people capable of making babies should be allowed to do magic, then that's an awful lot of people you're excluding from magic. So that's a silly argument. And then polarity. Polarity is any two things that are opposite to each other. Like, hot and cold, day and night, dark and light, morning and evening, that kind of thing. As male and female are not in fact opposites to each other in any way. They are merely social constructs. I mean, obviously there's biological male and female, but even that is socially constructed because the importance that we attribute to biological sex is massively overemphasized in our culture. So that doesn't make sense either. And the reason I create polarity with someone I love is because of all the other polarities that we have. It's nothing to do with our gender. So polarity isn't gender. They're two different things, and the authors of the Kybalion, written in 1912, quite clearly state that gender and polarity are not the same thing. So basically, gender and polarity are not an argument for cross-gender initiation only. Magical tradition isn't an argument for it. There's nothing in magical tradition that's remotely preventing us from doing same-sex initiation, and in fact, there's lots of things in magical tradition to support same-sex initiation. So magical principles and common sense and everything supports it. Now, some people have argued that that the Wicca have always done cross-gender initiation for generations, blah, blah, blah. Okay, then, so why did Gardner allow for a high priestess to strap on a sword and do the initiation? Why did he talk about Joan of Arc, who was a gender variant witchy person? He must have known that one of the reasons that she was accused of being a witch was because she was dressing as a man. And if that's not gender variant, then I don't know what is. And there are numerous instances from the past of witches being gender bending and gender variant. So, and shamans as well. There's the argument that you have a nice symmetry of male and female down the generations doing their cross-gendery thing. That's very nice, I'm sure. But You know, we're not proposing to do away with cross-gender initiation. You can still have that if it makes you happy, but just allow for the possibility that people can have same-sex initiation if they want to. You know, don't like same-sex initiation, don't have one. It's very simple, really, isn't it? So, anyway, I hope this has been food for thought. And I mean, to be honest, I've never seen an argument for that's opposed to same-sex initiation that wasn't one of the arguments that was used to be opposed to same-sex marriage. So if you're in support of same-sex marriage, why the heck aren't you in support of same-sex initiation? Because the spurious arguments that were used against same-sex marriage are the same spurious arguments that are used against same-sex initiation. You know, including it's the tradition and but what about making babies? You know, they're the same arguments and they're both ridiculously wrong. So it's just a no-brainer. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my rant on same-sex initiation, which I fully support, and I think it's great, and people should be able to have a same-sex initiation if they want one. So yeah, that is all. Blessed be.